And this is going to be a long one.
Necronomicon is coming.
So I had somebody that commented on one of my videos, I think it was the last one I made, the Gates of the Zonai. They said, thanks for the informative video. I would like to see more information on casting circles in the Necro, as well as more specific information on where to place the Mandal of the Callings, or the Mandal of Calling, and where to draw the gates in reference to the circle itself, and what materials and tools are appropriate to substitute with, and what ones are a necessity. So that kind of inspired me to write a little bit of a script, and hopefully this gives you guys a little bit more of an explanation when it comes to working with the Necro. I'm going to see how much stuff I can get through, and what I can explain to you guys a little bit better. So let's give it a shot. So when you're working with the Necro, when you're working with the 50 Names of Marduk or the Gate Walking, your altar needs to be set up in the northern part of your ritual space, or in this case, in the case in here, which is my temple room, it's the northern part of the room, which would actually be the wall that I'm facing. My altar for the Necronomicon stuff is no longer on the north wall, and that's because I have advanced to the area of working with the Aurelia text, and my mentors have told me to start working on the western wall. I don't suggest that for anybody that hasn't done the gate walking, or anybody that has not gotten into the Aurelia text or the gates of Anu, Enlil, and Enki, which I may get into in another video. Anyway, so you set the altar up in the north. Now let me just go through my list here. So for the Necronomicon spellbook, you only need 2 candles. Now these 2 candles cannot be used for anything else other than Necronomicon spells. So you can't use them to, light a room up afterwards. You can't use them to perform a spell from a different book, albeit the fact if you're working with the Necro, I suggest you stick to it and stop bouncing around with different modalities and different spiritual paths. If you're going to find a path, stick with it for a while. I got my little teeny here. She's the one you rarely ever see on video. I don't think you guys have seen her yet. Anyway, she's the skittish one. And Pixie's around here too. So that was a note on candles. Now, you can use the same 2 candles for any Necronomicon seal or any spell with the Necronomicon, not just the 50 Names of Marduk, but you could even use those as the God and Goddess candles if you are to do a gate walk, or if you're going to be working with the Aurelia text, or if you're going to be doing something from the Maklu burnings, the book of Maklu, the Book of the Burnings. I'm tripping up a little bit because long day at work with professional development hour, woohoo. So anyway, that is with the Necronomicon spellbook. Remember, when you make a seal for the Necronomicon spellbook, you do it on parchment paper or any other material that could be drawn to you. Like if you're an artist and you really like working with, I don't know, it's been a while since I've hung out with anyone that uses anything other than just canvas or paper, but you could do it on parchment. I personally like to do it on index cards or resume paper. It just gives it more of a feel. I don't know why I stick to that stuff, but I do. And you draw the seal on it, and you can, if you don't really want to pick a different color to go along with the correspondences of what the aim of your spell is. For example, if you want things to get better in your life, you might choose blue. If you want some protective energy, you might choose black. If you want to attain a goal, you might choose red. So you draw the seal on it. You can only use the same seal for the same goal. You could have the same seal. You could use that seal for a different goal, but of course then you would have to redraw it. Of course, I'm already going off of my my script here. So anyway, let me continue. For gate walking, for doing the gate walking, you do have to cast a circle. On a side note, when you work with the 50 Names of Marduk, you do not cast a circle, because you are trying to commune especially and specifically and directly with the 50 Names of Marduk. And to put up a barrier of a circle is to, I think I said this in one of my other videos, to make a phone call and then hang up on the person. You're setting up a barrier so that the communication doesn't happen. So, Necronomicon spellbook, no casting circles. Got it? All right, so for the gate walking, you cast 2 circles, an outer circle and an inner circle. If you are not experienced with energetic working and casting a circle, then I suggest you use something like, well, the Necronomicon itself says to use flour. as a barrier. You could even, some people do this, they take a string and they make a circle with the string. It is a physical barrier. That can also be an energetic one. Most people start with physical barriers as opposed to energetic ones because our senses, if you're a newbie, are not exactly that attuned to feeling, seeing, or sensing energy. So we represent those with physical barriers so you can kind of get a feel for it. All right, get your head out of my trash bag, Reese. Anyway, so there's 2 circles. You cast the outer one first, clockwise starting in the north. Then you cast the inner one, starting in the north. After you cast both of those circles, you place the Agamasaratu in the northeast corner. The Agamasaratu being the bowl of the Watcher. That kind of sets up a little bit of a barrier between you and your Watcher and the outside. Your Watcher basically stands as a gatekeeper, no pun intended with the gate walking, in between both of those circles. So it's protecting you from the outside world and outside influences such as the Alu, the Idimu, or any of the other negative spirits that could come upon you with the energy that you're raising and the different planes that you're crossing in the gate walking. Let's see. Yep. I covered all of this stuff. Yeah. Okay. Next part, the brazier. So in a lot of the spells, when it comes to using fire, you have to have a central flame. The book, the Necronomicon, talks about using a brazier, which is I'm not entirely sure about that, but all I know is that it's a vessel where you hold flames. I'm sure we've seen tons of those in old school movies in ancient times with those big columns that have flames shooting out of them, that kind of stuff. Me, personally, I like to just use a very, very tall candle, because I don't really feel like burning my house down. Yep. If you are going to look for something to use as a brazier, I would pick something that's brass or actually copper in color and make sure that it's safe to have a flame in. You could even have a brazier, like for example, actually, I do have, there's stuff in it. Anyway, I have this that I decided to use as a brazier, and I will stick a tea light in there. I usually just trust tea lights because, like I said, I don't want to burn my house down, and that acts as the brazier. Now, the brazier is the central flame from which you draw the flames for the god and goddess candle, or the male energy and female candle, and the 4 lamps. All right? So, you also have a censer for incense, because you're going to need to burn some incense during your ritual. Remember, incense is pine, sandalwood, or cedar. If you don't have any of those, any regular incense will do, but the more specific you are to the system, the more powerful the energy is going to be. If you are substituting something, make sure that you have the know-how behind it and the energy to back it up. So, you have, for a ritual, you need 7 candles, all right? So you need the 2 for the god and goddess. Then you need the 4 for north, east, south, and west. And then the last one is for Gibil, the fire god. So let's see, what else do I gotta go with here? Yep, the Agamasaratu. Let's go over that. It can be made out of ceramic, metal, or be substituted with anything that can hold a fire and be drawn on. Or you can even etch on it if you're good like that. It is suggested that the sigil or seal for Arsaru Ludu be drawn on your Watcher Bowl, as well as the 3 signs, the Ara, the Bandar, and the Elder sign, and whatever custom sigils you like to give it more personal power. I also suggest a bowl or pot of dirt be placed in the northeast corner of the circle next to the Watcher Bowl if you are doing your ritual indoors. When the invocation of the Watcher tells you to thrust your sword of the Watcher into the ground at the end of the invocation of the Watcher, you place the sword in the dirt until the end of your ritual. Now, I just mentioned the Sword of the Watcher. The Sword of the Watcher, it's not exactly that well described, so I would say any blade will do, but I suggest a full tang, non-folding blade, as they are the best to projecting your own energy. Try to get iron, or, steel. Stainless steel, kind of crappy. I think that the one that I use is actually stainless steel, so, it works. The blade should have the Ara, the Bandar, and the Elder sign engraved or drawn on it as well. I would suggest drawing on it red in color. Remember the Mad Arab in the testimony, in the first part of his testimony, said that when he saw the 3 signs, they were red. So we go with that as a custom. So the dagger of Inanna. It can be made of copper or brass. If you can get copper, it's easy to cut one out of a copper sheet. A fellow gatewalker and viewer did that and suggested it to me. Look for a letter opener or a copper or brass dagger and carve the symbols into it as described in the Book of Calling. Like I said, mine is not entirely along with the traditions because I haven't found the exact right thing to use yet. However, this letter opener that I did get from my soon-to-be father-in-law works very, very well. It even has a dragon on the top of it, which would be representative of Mushusu, who happened to be Marduk's pet dragon. So I just kind of thought it fit, and it felt energetically right to me, so I'm using it. Remember, go with your gut on a couple of these things. If something feels right to you, use it, because the fact that it feels right is going to mean that the energy, your energy, is going to be more open to working with an object, to transmuting the energy, to cast spells, cast circles, cast spells, even cut a door if you need to get outside of a circle, or just project energy in general. I keep reaching up here because my altar is actually up that way. Let me get back to the script here. So, Dagger of Inanna, check. Let's see. The Mandal of Calling. Alright, a Mandal is, there's 2 of them in the Book of Calling. I actually have one of them on an altar that was the first altar I started using a while back, and it's over on my fiance's altar over here. It's currently got a bunch of candle wax spilt on it, otherwise I'd be happy to show it off, but it's kind of messy. So, the mandals themselves, when you make the mandal, it's set up on the altar in the north of the circle, in between the 2 candles representing the god and the goddess. Mandals are to be drawn on paper, drawn or carved into wood, or drawn on the ground if you're outside. Incense burners are to be placed in the center of the mandal because the smoke from the incense gives summoned spirits a means by which they can more easily manifest. I don't think I mentioned this in my previous video on evocation, but when you are doing an evocation, one of the books that I read, which actually has to do with the book of the Goetia, says you fill the room up with smoke because an energetic being, a deity or a spirit that you're trying to contact and you're trying to bring and manifest and evoke into this plane, it's very hard for them to take form because their laws of physics and stuff is very different from ours. So that smoke actually helps them, and it gives them something that they can take form into. Yep. Let's see. So when you make a mandal, I suggest it either be red or black in color. Mine that I made is black, but if I could go back in time, which I can't yet, I would have made it in red, because red is the color of fire, and as workers of the Necronomicon, we are technically priests of the flame. So if that's another side note. If you want to know what element the Necronomicon works with, it is most definitely fire. So, offerings during rituals. They can be olearbos, which is stinging nettle, as you guys know, pine, sandalwood, or cedar incense, or cuttings of those different plants/trees. And they're burned in the Agamasaratu. So, let's talk about the gates, which is what inspired me to make this whole video. So, gates can be drawn on the ground in the dirt, or drawn on poster board, which is my suggestion, in the appropriate color. Remember, every zonai has a specific color, so I would draw it in that color. For example, actually I'm not going to go into examples, I'm a little frazzled, but you guys can look it up. So, the seals. The seals have to be made on a smaller piece of paper. Preferably, when you make the gate, when you make any gate, there is a gap in the middle of it. The reason why there is a gap is because that seal is supposed to fit in that gap like it's a key. So when you are in the middle of a gate walking ritual and the Book of Entrance into the Walking says that you are to whisper the seal's name softly upon it. After you do that, you place it in the middle of the gate, and that acts as a key to open it. And then I believe a step or 2 later is when you actually do the incantation and then the circumambulation around the gate itself. So you're turning the key, essentially, by putting the key in and then walking around. Good analogy. I just came up with that on the fly while I'm making this video. Anyway, remember, gates are to be made bigger than the seals. Let's see. Yep. I already covered that stuff. Now, for the Aurelia text, which, remember, you got to be a gatewalker first before you step into this stuff, but for anybody that's going through it or will go through it, this will be a good tidbit for you guys to look at later. You have to make what's known as the Lost Bowl, or the Shattered Bowl of the Sages, and the same as the Agamasaratu, really, with making it out of whatever materials you can have to have that can hold something to burn in it. But it's got to have a crack in it. Let me show you guys what mine looks like. Let me take the candle out of it, because remember, I like using tea candles, or tea lights. So this is the Lost Bowl that I used. I put the script, I just dropped a bunch of incense, or I dropped a bunch of nettle in my, on my keyboard. So there's the script that you can see barely a little bit. This is drawn with Sharpie marker, and this is from the Aurelia text on the inside of it. Now, on the outside, you'll notice it does have a split or a crack on it. I actually took a pair of tin snips. I bought this at Savers for about $2, and I took a pair of tin snips, and I just bent it. I cut into it, and I made it bend a little bit, and it's, you know, a little bit symbolic of the fact that, like, when you're working with the Aurelia text, you're working with your negative emotions, so working with these things may crack you, or it may, you know, put a little bit of a dent in you, but you can still work, you can still heal. I'll have to work on a better explanation of that. Oh, one of the other things that is actually not in the Necronomicon, however, it was taught to me by one of my mentors. When you are setting up your altar space, it is good to have what's known as a rock of invocation. So you can actually put that rock on top of the mandal, and then your incense burner on top of the rock. Now, the rock that I have is about yay big, and I'm not going to lift it because there's too much other stuff on my altar. But the rock itself has the 3 signs on it. The Ara, the Bandar, and the Elder sign drawn with red Sharpie. Go figure. Yeah, I know I use them a lot. Anyway, so let me see if there's anything else on my list. Oh yeah, when you get to the Aurelia text, the Watcher is not called during any of the Aurelia rituals. And that is because when you are going through the gate walking, you are actually merging yourself with your Watcher. Remember, your Watcher is your higher spirit, it's your higher self, it's your guardian angel, it's also your subconscious. So as we work through the gate walking, we shed all this junk that has been put on us by our traumas, or by society, or by what other people want us to believe, or what other people want us to do or think. When we shed all of that stuff, we really are our true self. So we are actually becoming our own Watcher. We are merging with the Watcher that we have paid homage to with all of these different offerings over the course of, at a minimum, 9 months. And you can even stretch it longer than that. Like I've told you guys before, whenever I can, which is probably maybe 5 times a week, I do an offering to my Watcher. I know that I have been working with the Aurelia text, but I do not summon my Watcher during the Aurelia rituals. However, I still do a regular invocation of the Watcher at least 4 or 5 times a week, because I believe that is still that's paying attention to my higher self, because I have merged with my higher self. I am a better person because of the gate walking, and as long as I pay homage to my higher self, and I kind of recognize that that's what I am and that's what I should be, then I am less likely to let the rest of, you know, more societal conditionings, traumas, etc., actually break me back down to where I will have to go through the gate walking again. I know that I mentioned the Agamasaratu before. Let me grab it and show it to you guys, just in case anybody kind of maybe might have forgot or needs another visual. Now, it does have a lot of incense, dust in it, so I'm not going to turn it. But like I said, I would suggest using the Asaru Ludu power name and the power word, which is Ban Maskim. Personal symbols on it. I'm a diehard fan of The Legend of Zelda, so I put a bunch of Triforces on it. This is Asaru Ludu's seal. And then you have the Elder Sign, the Ara, and the Bandar, well, I'm getting exhausted. On the inside, I do have a couple more seals, and I also did put I did put a representation of the stars for the Great Bear, or Ursa Major, that we see up in the night sky, because remember, that's mentioned a couple times in the Necro, and if you read the Gates of the Necronomicon, that is very, very important for the gate walking, and also for the Aurelia text. If you watch the stars, whenever the Great Bear is hanging from its tail, so to speak, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, I believe. Somebody fact check me on that. When it's hanging from its tail, that's when the Ancient Ones are active. Now, what does that mean for us in the real world? The Ancient Ones being active, Ancient Ones being emotions, or, like our basic wants, needs, fears, stuff like that. Those are times in our lives where we could be a little bit more sensitive, or, more bad things could happen, or we could react more negatively. It's a very astrological thing. It's kind of the same thing as like Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde. It kind of comes and goes, and it affects us. The more that we are aware of these things, and the more that we work with energies like this, the more we're able to stay solid and on a straight path, regardless of the astrological stuff that's going on. So I think I covered quite a bit in this video. Actually, I think it says about 20 minutes right now, so I think this would be the longest video I've ever made. I knew it was going to be a long one. I'm going to keep going for a second. So, in my last video, I mentioned that I am doing another edition of the Necronomicon itself by adding all of the knowledge that I have discovered, and all of the analysis that I have come across in my travels in the last 2 or 3 years with the Necronomicon. And I've kind of come up with a working title for it, although I don't think I'm really going to release it. I'm not going to mention it because it's still a working title, and I really feel like it's a good thing. Then I'll talk about it. However, I have gone through quite a bit of old school books, tablet translations, a lot of different conjecture on the symbolism in the Necronomicon, and taking all that stuff and putting it into one solid piece, where you can read the regular Necronomicon if you want, or you can read it and then along with my commentary, because my commentary is in a different styled font. So you can either skip it if you're going through rituals and stuff, or if you want to just recite the regular text, or you can read my commentary. I have no idea when I'm going to get done with it, but it's an insanely exciting project for me. One of the other ideas that I was thinking about doing was what I like to call as a parody of the movie, an interview with a gatewalker, where I might, and let's see if it works, knock on wood, whatever. My fiance, who has also done the gatewalking, I may include her in a video just to get her perspective on how the gatewalking kind of worked with her, just to give you guys another idea of the transformative things that it can do for people. And I'm really liking the comments that I'm getting, because it's fueling me to make more videos and more explanation, and even dive deeper into my practice. So keep up the good work, guys. Good hunting.